Good evening, students. Today we're going to be discussing the main causes of World War I. Our essential question is, why did the military buildup, nationalistic feelings, and rival alliances set the stage for a continental war? I would like you to take focused notes and please write a summary on how the essential question connects, or how the notes connect to our essential question. Thank you very much, and I look forward to hearing your questions tomorrow. So the first major cause that we're going to discuss today is the rise of nationalism. Now, Europe as a whole enjoyed a great deal of peace and autonomy in the late 18th century or 19th century, but there were a lot of problems that lay right below the surface, mainly due to imperialism and industrialization. So this led to growing nationalism, basically to say that your country is better than others. This was fed by the growth of empires, and specifically also ethnic groups who wanted to break away from old empires, specifically in an area called the Balkans, which was formerly a part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire and the Ottoman Empire. These would cause significant fighting in these areas. Now, nationalism led into and was spurred on by imperialism. Essentially, countries would compete for colonies and resources, and the country with the biggest colonies and the biggest or the most resources would feel the most superior. But the problem was that this also spurred a mutual animosity between these countries, building these empires, and this would cause an arms race. This arms race would be called militarism, and this was the policy of glorifying your military and preparing your army basically to face any challenges that might come up against it. So the growth of an empire, imperialism, and the growth of a militarism to support that empire would also be fed into by nationalistic feelings. The last major cause would be a tangled mess of alliances. This was originally started by Otto von Bismarck, the German chancellor. He wanted to keep basically France at bay and Europe in peace after 1871. He was afraid that the French might start a war again to basically take revenge for the Germans after their loss in the 1870 Franco-Prussian War. Eventually, most of Europe would be split into two dueling alliances, the Triple Entente and the Triple Alliance, that we will get into in just a second. The first alliance system would be formed by the Germans. They sought to isolate the France with a series of treaties and alliances. The first treaty they sign is with the Russians in 1881. They then go on to sign what would eventually become the Triple Alliance, which would be Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy in 1882. Now, alliances are difficult to keep, especially depending on who is ruling. So Kaiser Wilhelm II becomes Germany's ruler in 1888 when he comes of age. He is essentially Kaiser, meaning king. He kicks Otto von Bismarck out of power in 1890, and this changes the alliances, specifically with Russia, who Kaiser Wilhelm II was first cousins with Nicholas II, and you might imagine that would make a perfect alliance, but Kaiser Wilhelm did not like his cousin. So he drops his alliance with Russia, and Russia immediately allies itself with Germany's arch nemesis, France. Germany's moving and shaking sent shockwaves throughout the continent, specifically when they began to start building their navy. This very much alarmed the British. So the British looked around and thought about who they could ally themselves with to strengthen their military presence on the continent. And they saw a ready-made alliance with the French and the Russians. So they would form what we would refer to as the Triple Entente in 1907. Not every European country was within an alliance, but the very important ones, England, France, Russia, Germany, Austria-Hungary, all were within an alliance. And this set up a major problem, specifically because the Triple Alliance was sandwiched by the Triple Entente. So when we look at all these causes as historians, we like to use the following acronym. M, which is militarism, the growth of a military. if you have a military, you want to use it. A, alliances, which means partnerships. I, imperialism or industrialization or a combination, the growth of an empire and the search for resources. And then lastly, N, nationalism, the belief that your country is in fact better than everybody else's, led to one of the most destructive events in human history. Now, World War I is also a story of crumbling empires, specifically the Austria-Hungarian Empire. For hundreds of years, Austria-Hungary ruled an area called the Balkans, but many Balkan ethnic groups won their independence in the early 1900s. One of these countries was Serbia. They were made up of largely of a Slav or ethnic group called the Slavs. Now, Austria-Hungary also annexed a group or a country called Bosnia-Herzegovina in 1908. This outraged the Serbians because they felt that they were rightful rulers of all Slavic lands, and they wanted to do something about this issue. Now, the area right below Austria-Hungary on this map is the area that we would call the Balkans. Bosnia, Serbia, Montenegro, and Macedonia would all be areas that we refer to today as the Balkans. Now, this is a very ethnically diverse region of the world, and because of this, there has been a lot of conflict. As you can see in this map here, where it has all of the different ethnic groups that are broken down within the Balkan territory, the mixing of these has been oftentimes explosive, hence the name the powder keg of the world, which it certainly would be during the World War I. Now, problems in the Balkans came to a head on one fateful day of June 28, 1914. On this particular day, the Archduke of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, a man by the name of Franz Ferdinand, would be visiting Sarajevo, which is the capital city of Bosnia-Herzegovina. On this particular day, a group of, for lack of a better word, rebels, or a terrorist group that would be referred to as the Black Hand, had set out to kill the leader of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, thus freeing Bosnia from the control of the Austro-Hungarians and uniting it with their Slavic cousins in Serbia, as they rightfully believe they should. Now, we talk about them as a terrorist group, as they certainly were, but that also gives them a certain amount of officialness that they didn't necessarily have. What they really were was just a bunch of teenagers that had high nationalistic ideas and wanted to do some stupid things. To illustrate this point, we pick up the story with 19-year-old Gavrilo Princip, who would be Franz Ferdinand's assassin. So on this day, June 28, 1914, the Black Hand decided that they were going to bomb the Archduke's parade route, which they did. The only problem was that the grenade did not detonate at the time that it should have detonated, and the Archduke was able to escape with no injuries to himself or his wife. At this point, the Black Hand basically fled the scene, giving up the idea of assassination in favor to try something else again. They all retired to a sandwich shop where they were literally getting lunch, when fate would have it that the limousine carrying Archduke Franz Ferdinand, fleeing the scene of the bomb attack, made a wrong turn down the wrong street and came to a stop directly in front of the sandwich shop where Princip and his fellow assassins were eating. At this point in time, Princip walks out of the sandwich shop, walks up to the Archduke's limousine, and shoots both the Archduke and his wife Josephine in the back of the car. Now, this act of terror would eventually lead to Serbia declaring war on Austria, Russia coming to Serbia's aid, and eventually would lead to a catastrophic war that would kill roughly 9 million people. people. And we will discuss more about that in our next lecture. Please take a moment to summarize your notes in your composition book, answering the essential question. Thank you, and we'll discuss it tomorrow.